Hi and welcome. Today I have a piece for my mini ring binder or journal, ring journal. And I start with a piece of Bristol Smooth paper, and I've cut it down my Cricut to the size I wanted, and my design adds a little tab on the outside, and it varies where that tab is going to be, so I can have different spots of tabs. So I'm using a stencil. It's a Tim Holtz stencil, and it's got text on it, and I'm using some black texture paste. I had always refrained from getting it because it just seemed very Halloween and things like that, I just never got it because I didn't think I had any use for it. But I was at Joann's recently, and they had a big sale because they're going out of business. So the only thing really left they had of Tim Holtz was some texture paste, some odd other things. But so I did pick up a black texture paste, and now I'm kind of obsessed with it. And so I add some of the stencil area, but I don't cover the entire piece. I just want some of it showing. And so I dump my stencil in water right away so it doesn't harden on the stencil. And I set my paper aside to dry, and now it is dry, and I'm going to be adding some Distress ink sprays. The first one I'm doing is salvaged patina, and I'm just doing that right down the middle, and I'm not wanting to cover the area with each color. I'm going to cover the whole area with Distress inks, but I want different colors on different areas, and for some reason that's like getting a really wide spray there, and I'm not sure why. But anyways, so I'm putting the spray down, and the second one was Rusty Hinge. It's an Oxide, and so I'm adding some water to kind of loosen up that spray because it looked a little bit spattery, and I didn't want that look. I want it to look like it's been liquid and not a spatter spray. So I'm adding a little more of that salvaged patina. I had an aspirin sitting on the side of my table, and it just rolled out, so I didn't want you to think it's some kind of bad drug or something. It's just aspirin. And so I'm drying between layers, and so my colors don't mix as much as possible. I'm also adding a Spritz, and this one is, I think it's tumbled glass, or no, this one is the same. It is salvaged patina. And then I'm also adding another Spritz over the orange, and that's wild honey. I didn't have any rusty hinge, so I just wanted to add some orangey color, and so I'm using wild honey because that's what I had. And I haven't used this one in a while, so it's taken a little while to get it to loosen up, but you want to make sure it is loosened up, or else you're going to have a bad ratio if you don't pick up any of the sparkly stuff. And like with the brush, you want to make sure you wipe off the nozzle. going to be using some crackling campfire just to kind of darken up and add a little darker orangey red. And I don't have that in a spray currently, so I'm just using my pad and a sponge and just putting it on the edges, mainly over where the orange is and around all the edges. I think I added a little more salvaged patina right there, just on the corner. So that's dry, and I'm going to do a little bit of splatter. And I'm going to use black soot distress ink and just add a little bit of splatter. So I'm just putting it on a clean piece of paper, which is totally not necessary. And now I'm taking some scorched timber and I'm going to add it just around the edges, just to give it a little bit of definition there. So I'm going to add a little bit of ephemera. This first piece is from Collage Tiles, from Tim Holtz Collage Tiles, and the color was off, so I decided to add a little bit of crackling campfire. I still want to be able to see the text on it, and now I'm just kind of roughing up the edges. It looked really super smooth, so I'm just roughing them up with a sturdy pair of scissors. And then I'm going to put a little bit of the scorched timber around the edges. And my other pieces, I'm just going to use vintage photo to go around. So the 6 and the 3 are both from a digital download. I don't recall if it was the same. I don't think it was the same. It wasn't the same download, I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm not sure actually. But it could be the same shop. And that's a number strip from Tim Holtz. And I grabbed one with some red in it because I thought that would be appropriate for this piece. And then I have a butterfly that I think will go with it, and it's because it's got some oranges and grays and blacks. And I'm gonna start gluing. You always start from what's behind the most. I mean, if it's going to have something sit on top of it, you want to start with the farthest thing back. Sometimes that's hard because you might layer them where they're woven together. And this has got texture paste on it, so it's a little tricky to make sure that it is glued securely. And as usual, or as happens often, I glue it down slightly different than what I had down previously, just kind of thinking it through, and then sometimes it gets laid down differently. With the butterfly, I've kind of bent it in the middle, and I'm only going to glue the body portion of it so that the wings can kind of fly off the page a little bit. And because it has a little tab sticking out, I want something on that tab, and typically I'll put a number from one of the stamps collections I have that have a bunch of numbers. And this stamp, I believe, was the Eccentric stamp set, and I'm using StazOn Ink. And whenever I have to look down real close, I'll sometimes get my head in the shot. So I'm adding a sentiment. I'm using the Small Talk sticker book, and I'm gonna choose a black one. And I choose one, it says it's all perspective, and you can do the edges. I don't think it was really necessary, but I kind of get used to doing it. I'm just deciding where to put it, and I'm gonna stick it above my text. And it is a sticker book, but I just want to make sure it stays down So I usually do apply some glue. And the last thing I'm going to do is punch a hole for an eyelet, because this is for my mini ring journal. And so I happen to have a single hole punch that works perfectly for the size of eyelet I want to use. Some of those 2-hole punchers would work, or I guess if you're really careful, 3-hole punch, whatever you need, whatever you have. And then I just take my eyelet and I use my tool and a hammer to get it fixed down there. And that is all. I have some final pictures coming up. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have not subscribed yet, please do. I'd really appreciate you. And if you liked what you saw, give me a thumbs up. Either way, I hope you have an awesome day.